Welcome, everyone, and thank you so very much for joining me today for another episode of Talking Cloud. Now, you know, this is where we talk about cloud computing, all things cloud. I mean, it's such an enormous word, touches just about everything we do in the world of computing. Now, you know, I'm no expert, but I do know where to find them. And today, ladies and gentlemen, I am so jazzed because I truly have a legend within the circles of cybersecurity and firewalls and checkpoint and really the cybersecurity industry overall. And certainly now that also includes cloud. Now, this guy, gosh, I'll admit, I have known him for a few years. He's not like, somebody I've had over for dinner and he's my best friend, but we know each other pretty well. We've worked together for a long time. I have a great deal of respect and admiration. The guy just is, again, he's a legend. He's got more stories and he can tell you the truth on just about any myth you hear if it has something to do with checkpoint software. So I am so thrilled and excited to have with me today PhoneBoy. I'm not going to even say your real name. I'll let you do that because I think that's what most of the world knows you by is PhoneBoy. But hey, Dameon, thank you very much for coming on the program.
Thank you, and yes, long time listener, first time guest.
Well, it's awesome. I appreciate it very much. Listen, I always say it. I'm the Gilligan. I bring professors in. I mean, I try to set the bar low. That way, I can always get over it. But I've never professed myself to be deep in the weeds and highly technical. But I get it and have for a long time. That's just kind of one of the benefits, if you will, of being in the biz for a while. Like we were talking about our first experiences with the cloud involved an acoustic coupler, right? I mean, you were on some bulletin boards back in those days, weren't you, Dameon?
Oh, yes, I was. In fact, yeah. So my first foray online was as a teenager with acoustic coupler modem with one of these Western Electric rotary dial phones, right? That you could drop off a building and it would and it looked like nothing happened to it. That's right. Yeah. So I've been thinking about this, this journey to the cloud, and I've seen. I've definitely taken my own journey there, and I've seen a lot of customers take their journey to the cloud, and I think it does start with remote access in a lot of ways. I need to access a computer that's not here. Yep. And so and if you think about computing when it first started, it was these large computers that were in a centralized location that we had to go physically to a room to go use it, right? Or use a terminal on it, that kind of thing. And so, yep. And now all we've done is just sort of extend the wire a bit. And now, and that's, remote access is kind of that first, I need to access a computer somewhere else. And ultimately, I mean, there's more to the technology than that, of course, but that's the first step, is accessing a computer that's maybe not in your pocket, or leveraging resources that aren't in your immediate vicinity, but they're somewhere else.
I think the mainframe was Cloud.9. You could argue that was really the early days of cloud computing, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. I think networking is it's an extension of it's one of those foundational things. And we talk about the cloud as, we kind of joke it's somebody else's computer. It's more than that. It's a confluence of technologies. It's really, in computing, there's these hard trends of storage, connectivity, and processing power. These things continue to increase, go up and to the right as far as capacity and capabilities, and leveraging all of that is certainly from it. We can do so much more than we could do back in the 1980s when remote access was just 80 by 40 or 80 by 24 console, right, with
yes.
characters on it. Now it's now we can. Now we've got computers that are figuring out whether something is something is an orange or not, or
or answering our phone and answering questions for us.
Exactly, and so I think whether you want to use the cloud or not, you really are in some way. It's just a question of to what extent are you using it.
You talk about these technology pillars. I was just on the phone earlier today with my son, and you mentioned earlier that your boy was doing work to make music for video games, and that your daughter played the French horn, I think you said.
Yep.
Well, my son's now in his third year at Belmont University in Nashville, and he too is into music, but there's also the business requirements, and those are the classes that he's been getting into. And one of the things that we were just talking about today that he said he was learning about was Moore's Law. And I was telling him, because I think we were talking about this once before, Dameon, these have been around. The ingredients, nothing's new. It's the composition of those ingredients, meaning we've always had the ability to, connect, albeit it took us to put a phone receiver in an acoustic coupler. But now it's that what I tell my son is it's bandwidth, connectivity, and compute. So, I think we're saying the same thing. It's this, I'm ubiquitously connected to an unbelievably huge pipe with supercomputers in my pocket. And the scale is so unbelievable. And I told my boy, I said, it's very similar to when you learned in chemistry that 3 teaspoons of something mixed together didn't really result in anything, but 3 gallons of each did. Right? That when you have different quantities of these same components, you can end up having a different effect. And I think that's where we're at today with bandwidth, compute, connectivity. We're coming into an amazing new era, and it really is all leveraging cloud, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. And, and I think I look at cloud in that, it creates a lot of opportunity that we didn't have before, because we have so much more effectively information and ability to process it at high speed from many different locations. Mm-hmm. That gives us amazing opportunities. It also gives the hackers amazing opportunities too, right?
Boy, no kidding.
Yeah.
No kidding.
So when we start, to bring in just a little bit of checkpoint marketing here, when we talk about Gen 5 threats, it's a lot of it is really, we call them multi-vector threats. And it's because there's all this compute, storage, and processing everywhere that we're able to leverage in a malicious way that potentially creates these kinds of threats. They're able to move around and come through different paths and locations and that kind of thing. Yep. And so that's that's when I try to explain it to people, that's at least that's the way I go with it, is because I think it is and it's going to, and as we've if you look at the history of cybersecurity, if you talk about Clifford Stoll and the cuckoo's egg, right? It was they were talking about dial-up into a Unix server somewhere, and there was an accounting error somewhere, and that caused him to go on this this hunt basically to try and figure out where this where this was coming from, and it turned into this great story. That's what got me into cybersecurity, but that's effectively the cloud, right? We don't think of it that way, but and then we start at it, but we talk about all these different technologies, and we've had to learn. There's a learning curve. And so for those of us who've been in the industry for a while, that we have a certain view of the world, we have to learn all these new terms. But when you actually dig into it, it's really not all that different from the stuff that we've been doing. It's just, okay, we're talking a different language now. Instead of typing commands on a command line interface, we're sending things through a REST API. Right. Is there much difference in that? Not really.
Yeah. Although I would suggest, and I'd be curious what you think of this, it seems we are entering a phase, an era where, because bandwidth is so great all the time, right? Whether I'm Wi-Fi or I'm 5G or whatever. Because compute is so powerful, because storage, I was telling my boy, the first Macintosh computer I sold to Alaska Airlines, 1 megabyte of RAM and no mass storage at all. And it was $1,600. All it had was that 400K micro floppy. And today, my iPhone 12 Pro has 512 gigabytes of memory. It's pretty crazy how things have evolved today and what we're carrying around because of these forces, these pillars, the accelerated rate at which all of them have continued and what they enable. We're really at a time where I can, what I always say is kind of shake the Etch-a-Sketch on how applications work, how they're built. And it's happening already with pods and Kubernetes and microservices, right? But I was trying to explain to my son where we're entering a phase now where the data is going to get delivered, but where the compute occurs, you may not really know. And this was my point that I wanted to tie that back to. It really drives home the need for having a unified threat intelligence that can also protect across all of these varied environments. Because the prize is not my phone, it's the data my phone's connected to.
Oh, absolutely. And I think I look at the cloud, and I remember this when I was doing security architecture reviews several years ago. I always looked at the cloud as an opportunity to get things right, because there's a lot of, I guess a lot of sins that organizations have made over the years as far as designing their networks and designing their applications and designing everything, partially because that was the only way they knew how to do it, or the technology didn't exist to do it better. And now you can shake up shake up the Etch-a-Sketch and come up with something different, and you don't have to create it the same way that you did before. That's a huge opportunity. But
exactly,
the other side of that is there's a lot more ways to screw up now than there used to be. So
no question.
And so now you didn't have it used to be before, and I back when I first started working for a checkpoint reseller way back in the day, we had a T1 line coming into the office, right? And that was the only way in. I don't even remember if there was dial-up phones or not. There may have been. I can't remember. But if I wanted remote access in, I was actually using the Checkpoint VPN product most likely to come in, and I was dialing in from it was doing PPP on a phone line.
Yeah.
So yeah, and there was no Wi-Fi or anything like that, right? So literally there was the two ways that were into the office were physically entering the office or somehow breaching that that firewall that was protecting the network. That was it. Now, right? You walk into a typical office building. There's probably or a typical office. Although these days with COVID and a lot of people working from home, there may not be as many people working in an office these days. But think about think about the number of access points that may be in a given company, right? I mean, I know just walking into a restaurant, there's probably 5, right? It's like, why do you need so many access points? Well, I mean, okay, so of course I'm one to talk. In my house, I've got several, but I'm also a geek, right? And so, but that's a way in, right? And then there's the phone in everybody's pocket. There's the Bluetooth devices. There's the who knows what else.
BLE. Do you think the world knows how hackable BLE is in earlier iterations, which are far and away the most widely deployed?
Yeah, again, a lot of the decisions that were made back in the day were because we didn't know better. and also maybe because the technology didn't exist, right? To do something different. And and Bluetooth is one of those amazingly backward compatible protocols that has a lot of the Bluetooth stacks are. I'm sure there's plenty of security vulnerabilities in those. And oh, by the way, you can't update those devices because they're the manufacturer stopped making them 5 years ago. And
correct. Or it's just one of those IoT type of devices that's not designed to be upgraded. It's burnt in. It's there. It's shipped.
So I'll actually give you an example. So I was. I've got many different mobile phones here, but I have a Samsung S8 Plus that I've had for a little while, and I use it to test various things. And I've got our mobile threat prevention software on it, Sandblast Mobile, and I fired it up the other day just because I was cleaning some stuff off the device and whatever, and so I saw that there was a security event, and there was that and this is something I think we discovered as a company actually. It's the Achilles DSP thing, and this is a hardware level vulnerability that there's probably some software patches that can be deployed, but they have to be deployed by again it's one of these it's kind of almost like with the SolarWinds thing. There's a supply chain of things that have to be updated, and they're not designed to really be updated. And if the vendor can't update it properly, then what can you do about it? So this is as we become more connected and we rely on these things more and more, and we don't create things that are easy to update. No, by the way, making things easy to update also makes them easy to inject malicious code, right? So there's a balancing act there. You have to make it updatable, but not
double-edged sword, right?
Exactly. So it is a double-edged sword, and so we have to be. We're relying on more and more of these things, and and all of the devices that you carry around, they broadcast information about yourself, and or it can potentially be hackable, and people are unaware of all of this, and I can understand people being even frightened by it because and some people don't like to use the stuff because it's because of that, again, the bad guy only has to be right once. We have to be right as good guys. That are protecting. We have to be right every single time. That's right. And by the way, they don't really care about your phone because there's lots of other phones that are probably easier to hack. But they want the data, right? They want what they have access, what that phone has access to. That it becomes a hop-off point. So
correct. And this is one of the key points when I speak about Infinity in particular, and just the whole notion of the desperate need for consolidation that really truly is out there. The fact that we've built up these fortresses, but the fact is we really do need to harmonize and unify our threat intelligence. And I think it's amazing because and I know when Checkpoint started, we didn't call it the cloud, but there's not a vendor on the planet that doesn't do it this way today. Suck up IOCs, put them in a big bid bucket in the cloud, do your fairy dust and magic, send back the results. I mean, is there anybody that does it differently than that?
I don't think so. And what I like to remind people is I say the name of our company is Checkpoint Software Technologies. We're fundamentally a software company. And
thank you.
So we actually, we look, even though we run on hardware, we look at everything. We understand that fundamentally it's software that drives it all, and
that's
so
right.
When we make our technologies, we make them agnostic almost to what they're running on. I mean, within reason, right? There are some sometimes there are different instruction sets on different chipsets and that kind of thing. But
sure.
But I think you have to be, So when I look at the breadth of the Infinity vision, right? I think that it is. There's a lot to take in, and it all has to work together if you're going to have a chance again. Because again, the bad guys only have to be right once, and the good guys have to be right every single time. And it's a cliche, but it's true.
It is absolutely true. And I think the other thing that people sometimes forget is, unlike every one of our customers that have a tail, if you will, of technology they're dragging along because they can't depreciate everything, they can't upgrade everything, they can't move everything everything to the cloud, whereas the bad guys, they can pretty much just drop it and go straight to the edge, right? Straight to the newest tools, attacking you in the most vulnerable areas where there are the weakest security solutions, and certainly people would argue that's IoT and cloud, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and that God, there's so much there, and yeah, you have to, and it all runs on software.
That's right,
and it's all talking to each other, and you may not be able to modify that software or even interact with that software, but it's there, right? There's instructions that are doing things, and there are ways to make it do things that it wasn't designed to do.
Your point, I love it. It's why, in fact, every event, I'm like kind of a little bit of a maniac, and I always want it to be checkpoint software. You know, we need to just constantly, like a lighthouse out the end of a jetty, remind the market, remind the world, remind our customers that we're a software company. We're not a hardware company. And that really has some distinct advantages. And I think also it's important to remind people we are the ones that have the patent on stateful inspection. Thanks very much. We were the ones that architected this model that put all the information up into a big bit bucket, what we now refer to as the cloud. But that was certainly not the case when we initially did it. You know, there are a lot of firsts that you could argue were checkpoints.
Yeah, and I think, or I think a lot of things even that have people that have left Checkpoint and actually have gone on to do other things. Some of those ideas came from Checkpoint. They did. Orca Security is an example of a company that is. A couple other co-founders. I used to work with them, in R&D, so they're in some ways they compete, I could see some of the Checkpoint DNA in some of their ideas, right? And they may be taking it a slightly different direction than we did, and I think that's and I've said before that Checkpoint's influence on the industry goes well beyond the products that we've created. I think that there's a lot of influence we've had as a company on the industry in just people that have come through Checkpoint and have gone on to do different things, and it's you and I have been doing this for a long time, and we've seen people come and go. Not only from Checkpoint, but from different parts of the industry and the different ideas that have come up, and so some of these some of the technologies. It's like Checkpoint was working on a lot of the technologies way back when, and we had and they were built for a different time, and you can still see there's some legacy bits of that in the in the products, for instance, right, that you can see that this was from back in the 90s or whatever, but the fundamental kernels, the ideas that functionality and those features provided, they're still there, and they're still driving it, and it's ultimately, we want to bring people to we want people to provide people with the highest level of security on the internet, right? And I saw this.
We secure the internet.
Yeah, we secure the internet. Yeah. So
that was our first slogan.
That was I've got a cup sitting here on my desk here that I've been drinking coffee out of, and it was when right after I had joined Checkpoint as a result of the Nokia acquisition. As a cup I got. Yeah. It's got the classic Checkpoint logo, and it says "We secure the internet." So this is before before all the different marketing slogans. Now secure your everything is the current one, I think. But
I remember it well.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's funny because I saw that the sort of the corporate mission statement. I was looking at a video that somebody was asking me to get, or they were getting some feedback on, and there was our mission statement there, and I realized that I'd never actually seen the mission statement, but when I saw it, I'm like, well, this is not a surprise to me, because this is what Checkpoint has always been. We've always been about we've always been out there trying to prevent bad things from happening to our customers, right? And that's
absolutely.
And so that's the core of everything that we do, and when you understand and can get behind what a company's doing. This is one of the reasons I've been working with Checkpoint's products for and now working for Checkpoint 25 years. I mean, I believe in the mission that we have, and I think
I'm with you.
Yeah, that's why we're here.
I mean, and I have to, my own personal 2 cents, I feel so fortunate to be back at Checkpoint and finding my way back. It's really quite remarkable. It's almost literally to the day 20 years since I was at Checkpoint before in strikingly similar circumstances. I went to work for Meta Info in February. 2 months later, in April, Shlomo comes to Seattle and says, "We just acquired you," and we had 36 people. Fast forward, it's 2018, July, and I guess it was 3 months instead of 2 months later, it's announced that Checkpoint acquired us. And ironically, I had only been with both companies for just a very short time. The second time around, it was so cool. It was like coming home, It was just really, really cool. So I feel real fortunate. And what's been most impressive, I see Checkpoint as the steady Eddie. I mean, the one that is not erratic and waving all over. We're not swerving on the road. We're not throwing money around like a drunken sailor. We're responsible, and you can see it every day. And I love working for a company that is so well run. That's really, really noticeable. Yeah, we, like every organization, I mean, we all have things we can complain about, but this company I think, has a very special culture, has a lot of just amazing people, and I've been really thrilled to being back.
Well, I'm glad to have you back too.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Sometime on a podcast with you, we'll tell stories about the early days when that was back in the kooky days when, we did stuff like, skits and movies and dressed up like evangelists and other crazy stuff.
Hey, you were Checkpoint's first evangelist, so.
Yeah, that's right. I know you can really appreciate this. I really wear that title, that badge, with a great deal of honor and pride. And, I've had that title for, more than 2 decades. And I've always looked at it in a very special way. And it seems like now it's kind of bantered around a little bit more and given out a little more freely than I feel it is warranted. But it means a lot to me. And I try to uphold, my mind's eye always, the first evangelist I ever think of is Guy Kawasaki. At Apple. And that was kind of what I always saw it as, that's the ideal evangelist.
Yeah, I've actually got one of his books on my bookshelf here. Autographed by him, actually, which is So, longtime Apple guy, because that was the first computer I started working on was an Apple II. So, I grew up an Apple person, and so of course the sort of some of that cult, I guess, is that goes along with that. But Guy Kawasaki back in the day is always been an interesting character to follow because he and it's. Honestly, it's really easy to when you believe, right? It's very easy to be genuine and be very
evangelic,
evangelic, right? And
yes, absolutely.
And in my role, right? So what I do these days, and it's funny because a lot of what I'm doing today was what I was doing in the beginning of my career. Except now Checkpoint's paying me, and they call it marketing, which is funny, but it's okay. And it's not and I love it. I get to help people solve their issues, and I get to promote a company that I really believe in, and and I do, and we don't shy away from the facts of a situation. We sometimes there are issues, and we address them as best we can, and that's it's like there's not a I always used to associate marketing as being dishonest, and believe me, there are some elements in marketing with it that can be seen that way. But I think it is it's very easy. I'm proud to work for Checkpoint. I don't have it is they have been it lines up with what with a lot of what I believe and we try to do the right thing, and I think it's funny. As 2020 got rolling and coronavirus hit and all of that, it's at that point I was even more thankful that I worked for Checkpoint because
that's when the true colors come out, right? I mean, and it's really true. Yeah, I've never received so many emails from any employer. Albeit I've never been through another pandemic, but never have I had as many genuinely heartfelt emails of concern for me. You doing okay? Everything okay? How are you doing? We've got this get together and that get together. I mean, I too feel exactly the same. I'm very proud and feel like, we're special. And I even posted that when there was that LinkedIn thing about, one of the top greatest companies to work for. It's like I think I must be the luckiest man on the planet because I've had the chance to work for them twice.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I think it's. Yeah, I don't think we meant for this to turn into a Checkpoint love fest, but it did.
No, yeah, well, and hey, I think the key is what you just touched on. If this was not genuine, if this wasn't truly something that came from us and was truthful, it would be sensed, and then everyone would know. But that's the difference. It's genuine, and to have a passion for what you believe in and having it be genuine, I mean, that's the best kind of conversation. So I think it's been terrific. I really appreciate you joining me. I want to do it again because you and I, Dameon, we could probably talk for hours and have it be interesting because you've certainly made these last 20 or 30 or whatever minutes interesting. So I really want to thank you for joining me on Talking Cloud.
You're welcome. Could I do a plug for my podcast while we're at it?
Yes, please.
So I do the Checkmates Go podcast. So you can, if you go to community.checkpoint.com, you'll find it on the end of the Learn menu, or you can search for Checkmates Go in your favorite podcast app. And we do it, roughly weekly. We'll do a podcast around cybersecurity, sometimes around Checkpoint, and we cover a lot of different topics. I know I will have Grant come on our podcast as well, and we will. But yeah, we'd love for you to give us a listen and give us a rating and 5-star review and all of that. And please do the same for Grant, because make sure you hit that 5-star review button and say something nice about him in Apple iTunes or whatever, however you listen to podcasts.
Yeah, thanks, Dameon. That does mean a lot. Tell me again the URL where they can find your podcast.
Go to community.checkpoint.com and
community.checkpoint.com.
Yeah,
I'll put it also in the description when we post this, so you'll be able to find it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I can set a direct link for that, but you'll find it on there. It'll be under the Learn menu. You'll see Checkmates Go Cybersecurity Podcast, but you can also you can just search in iTunes for Checkmates Go and find it. It's all of the good things that we're putting out there. We've got we do have some stuff coming up in that pod. We did a good year last year, and we're going to have some more. We've got some. We'll have Grant on ours, and we've got some great conversations planned. It's been a fun project to take on, and again, it's share the goodness of cybersecurity in Checkpoint.
Right on. Well, I've really enjoyed it, Dameon. Appreciate you being here, man. Thanks a ton. Look forward to getting on your podcast with you. I'll tell you stories about Checkpoint back in the late 90s. That was some fun times. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, I've got another one in the books. This was going to go down as a legendary one, a conversation with Dameon, PhoneBoy from Checkpoint. It's just been awesome. I really appreciate you listening. Thanks so much. Please, if you like it, share, tell your friends, and I'll look forward to having you back on the next episode of Talking Cloud.
Yeah.